The sun spilled through the tall windows of Franklin Preparatory Academy's Science Hall, casting long rectangles of light across rows of neatly arranged tables. Each desk displayed a student's science project, gleaming volcano models, solar system dioramas, and intricate biology charts. The air buzzed with the faint smell of glue, paint, and nervous energy. Amara Johnson, a 14-year-old black student with neatly braided hair tied back in a low ponytail, wheeled her project into the room. It wasn't flashy, no blinking lights or colorful backdrops. Instead, on the table, sat a sleek metallic prototype, about the size of a backpack, with a control panel and a series of small nozzles. Her hands moved carefully over the switches, double-checking connections. It was a compact water filtration system, her own design, based on advanced engineering concepts she'd studied online late at night. Students nearby glanced at it but quickly turned back to their own projects. To them, it looked too plain to be impressive. From across the room, Ms. Whitmore, the science teacher, strode toward Amara, clipboard in hand. She was known for her sharp critiques and even sharper tongue. "All right, Amara," she said, giving the prototype a cursory glance. "What have we got here? Another, portable coffee machine?" "It's a water purification system," Amara replied, standing straighter. "It can turn contaminated water into clean drinking water in under 5 minutes using—" Ms. Whitmore interrupted, scribbling something on her clipboard. "Mm-hmm. Well, it's ambitious. But maybe next year, try something a little more age-appropriate. Something you can actually build yourself." Amara's lips parted slightly. "I did build this myself." The teacher gave a tight smile. "Of course you did," she said, her tone dripping with disbelief, before moving on to the next table. Amara stood there, heart pounding, her fingers tightening around the edge of the table. She had worked for months, late nights, early mornings, and all she got was a dismissive glance. But what Ms. Whitmore didn't know was that this wasn't just a school project. It was a working prototype that had already caught the attention of engineers far beyond the walls of Franklin Prep. The afternoon rolled on, and the low murmur of chatter filled the science hall as parents and students drifted between tables. In the corner, a trio of official-looking judges entered, 2 men in navy blazers and a woman with a red scarf. They carried clipboards and wore polite but tight smiles, the kind reserved for formal events. Ms. Whitmore trailed behind them, acting as their guide. "This way," she said, gesturing toward the more colorful displays first. "You'll want to see the Smith twins' volcanic eruption. It has real smoke effects." The judges oohed and ahed, jotting notes, while the twins grinned proudly. Then, reluctantly, Ms. Whitmore led them toward Amara's table. "This is Amara Johnson," she said, her tone noticeably cooler. "She's built a water filter of some kind." Amara lifted her chin. "It's a portable water purification system that uses a dual-stage nanofiltration process and UV sterilization. It can make contaminated water safe to drink in minutes." The male judge with silver hair raised an eyebrow. "Interesting for a school project." The woman in the red scarf glanced at the device, then at Amara. "And you designed this yourself?" "Yes, ma'am," Amara replied, steady and firm. The second man, younger and impatient-looking, made a note without even bending down to examine the system. "Do you have documentation of your build process?" he asked in the tone of someone expecting the answer to be no. Amara reached into her folder and pulled out neatly organized blueprints, material lists, and test results. The younger judge flipped through a few pages, then set them back down, uninterested. Ms. Whitmore cleared her throat. "It's creative, but perhaps a bit too advanced to be entirely authentic." Amara caught the subtle implication. Too advanced for someone like you. Her cheeks heated, but she kept her posture straight. The judges nodded politely, scribbled a few more notes, and moved on to the next table. Behind them, Amara heard one of them murmur to Ms. Whitmore, "Well, at least she tried." Her stomach twisted. She wanted to shout, to tell them how many hours she had spent soldering wires and testing filters, but she bit her tongue. She'd learned that sometimes silence was more powerful, especially when you knew you'd soon prove them wrong. By the time the science fair ended, Amara was one of the first to pack up her things. She carefully disassembled her prototype, sliding each part into its foam-lined case. Most students stayed to chat and take pictures with their ribbons, but Amara left quickly, her sneakers squeaking faintly on the polished floors. The February air outside was crisp, and the bus ride home was quiet except for the low hum of the engine. She sat in the back, resting her chin on her hand, her mind replaying the day in snippets, the raised eyebrows, the scribbled notes, the polite but dismissive smiles. When she got home, the house smelled faintly of her grandmother's cooking, collard greens and cornbread. Her grandmother, Mama Ruth, was in the kitchen, humming along to an old gospel record. "Hey, baby," Mama Ruth said, glancing up from the stove. "How'd it go?" Amara hesitated, setting her case down by the door. "They didn't really believe I made it myself." Mama Ruth's hum faded, and she wiped her hands on her apron. "You know what your mama used to say? The truth don't need nobody's permission to be true." Amara smiled faintly and nodded, heading to her room. She sat at her small desk and opened her laptop. As her email inbox loaded, one subject line jumped out at her, bold and unread. From NASA, Youth Engineering Outreach Subject, your project submission. Her heart kicked up a beat. Hands trembling slightly, she clicked it open. Dear Amara Johnson, we recently reviewed your submitted design for the portable water purification system. Our engineering team was deeply impressed by your innovative approach and real-world application. We would like to formally invite you to join our Youth Innovation Program as a junior engineering contributor. At 14 years old, you will be the youngest member in the program's history. Amara stared at the words, reading them over and over. She felt her throat tighten, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming flood of relief and joy. She quickly scrolled down to see the rest. An official NASA signature, a contact number, and an invitation to visit their research center next month. Somewhere in the kitchen, Mama Ruth called, "You okay in there, baby?" Amara grinned, her voice shaking as she replied, "I'm better than okay." The next morning, the winter sun barely peeked through Amara's curtains when her phone began to ring. The caller ID displayed an unfamiliar Maryland number. For a second, she considered letting it go to voicemail, but something told her to answer. "Hello?" she said cautiously. "Good morning, is this Amara Johnson?" The voice was warm, professional, a woman's voice, confident and clear. "Yes, ma'am," Amara replied, sitting up straighter in bed. "This is Dr. Alicia Benton from NASA's Youth Innovation Program. I'm calling to personally congratulate you. Your water purification system has been reviewed not only by our youth outreach team, but also by our environmental engineering division. They believe your design has potential for real-world deployment, even in humanitarian missions." Amara's mouth went dry. Really?" "Yes, Doctor," Benton continued. "And I want to emphasize something. The work you submitted was sophisticated, precise, and entirely your own. We know that because we've verified your build process and testing results. You should be proud, Amara. You've accomplished something many seasoned engineers struggle to do." Amara glanced at her desk, where the prototype sat quietly, almost like it was listening. Dr. Benton went on, "We'd like you to visit our research facility in Houston next month. You'll meet other young innovators, tour our labs, and present your design to a panel of engineers. You'll also be featured in our Youth Engineering Spotlight." Amara's head spun. I don't know what to say." "You've already said it," Dr. Benton replied gently. "You said it through your work." Mama Ruth had been lingering in the doorway, curious. "Who's that, baby?" she whispered. Amara covered the phone's mic and mouthed the word, NASA. Mama Ruth's eyes widened, a slow smile spreading across her face. "Doctor?" Benton wrapped up the call with instructions about travel arrangements, promising to send an official letter for her school's records. As the call ended, Amara sat there in stunned silence, her phone still warm in her hand. She thought about the judge's dismissive glances, Ms. Whitmore's condescending tone, and a thought began to take shape. Maybe it was time they learned exactly who she was and what she was capable of. By Monday morning, the February chill bit at Amara's cheeks as she walked up the steps of Franklin Preparatory. She carried her backpack over one shoulder and the familiar silver case containing her prototype in the other. But this time, her steps felt lighter, her shoulders straighter. In the main hallway, clusters of students chatted near their lockers. the smell of fresh coffee drifting from the teacher's lounge. As Amara made her way toward her first class, her phone buzzed. It was a notification from the school's official email list. Subject: Congratulations to our student innovator. Body: Franklin Prep is proud to announce that ninth grader Amara Johnson has been invited to join NASA's Youth Innovation Program as the youngest junior engineering contributor in the program's history. Amara's award-winning portable water purification system will be presented at NASA's Houston Research Facility next month. Amara froze mid-step. The announcement had gone out to everyone: students, parents, and faculty. The reaction was instant. Heads turned, whispers started. A few students pulled out their phones, reading the email aloud. Wait, Amara? Like, our Amara? One boy said, looking genuinely confused. No way. That's NASA, another muttered. By the time she reached her science classroom, Ms. Whitmore was standing behind her desk, scanning her laptop screen with tight lips. Her eyes flicked up to Amara briefly, then back down. The room filled slowly with students, some casting sideways glances at her. A girl in the front whispered, "Didn't she say Amara's project was too advanced to be real?" Class began as usual, but about halfway through, the principal himself, Mr. Turner, knocked on the door. "Ms. Whitmore, may I borrow Amara for a moment?" All eyes followed her as she stood and followed him into the hall. Mr. Turner's smile was wide. "Amara, I just wanted to say how proud I am. NASA? That's no small feat. The local papers already reached out for an interview." Her chest warmed at his words, but there was still a lingering sting from how quickly people's tone shifted once the news broke. Just days ago, she was too ambitious. Now, she was a headline. As she returned to the classroom, Ms. Whitmore cleared her throat. "Congratulations, Amara. I suppose I underestimated your work." Amara simply nodded, sliding into her seat without a word. She didn't need to say anything. The truth was already out there, and it was louder than any dismissal could ever be. By Wednesday morning, Amara's face was on the front page of the Franklin Gazette. The headline read, "Local teen joins NASA as youngest junior engineer. Invents device to save lives." The article featured a photo of her holding the silver prototype in her hands, smiling shyly, with the school's science lab in the background. At lunch, she sat at her usual spot in the far corner of the cafeteria, but she wasn't alone anymore. Students she barely knew came over to congratulate her. Some asked questions about her device, while others just wanted a selfie for Instagram. "I saw you on Channel 7 this morning," one girl said, sliding into the seat beside her. "My mom said you're going to be famous." It wasn't just local coverage. Her inbox was flooding with messages from journalists, environmental organizations, even engineers who wanted to collaborate. One email stood out. From Doctors Without Borders. "We're interested in discussing potential field testing of your water purification device in communities without access to clean drinking water." The thought made Amara's pulse race. This wasn't just about recognition anymore. Her work could genuinely help people in need. That evening, a news van pulled up outside her house. Mama Ruth, wearing her best church dress, welcomed the reporter and cameramen inside. They filmed Amara in her small bedroom, working at her desk under the soft glow of a lamp. The reporter asked, "How does it feel to have NASA recognize you at only 14? Amara hesitated, then said, "It feels good, but I don't want it to just be about me. I want my invention to reach places where kids walk miles just to get water. And sometimes, it's not even safe to drink." The clip aired on the evening news, and by the next day, her social media accounts were flooded with messages of support from across the country. Some came from other young black girls, saying she inspired them to keep working on their own science projects. For the first time, Amara realized that what happened at the science fair, the disbelief, the doubt, wasn't just her personal battle. She was proving something bigger, that talent and intelligence don't have a look. A month later, Amara stepped off the plane into the warm Houston air, her silver case in hand. NASA's Johnson Space Center loomed in the distance, its iconic blue globe logo shining in the sunlight. Inside, the hallways felt like another world. glass walls revealing vast laboratories, engineers in white coats walking briskly, clusters of scientists discussing equations and designs on large digital boards. The air buzzed with quiet determination. Dr. Benton greeted her at the entrance with a wide smile. "Welcome, Amara. Everyone's been waiting to meet you." She led Amara to a sleek conference room, where a dozen engineers sat around a long table. On the wall behind them, a large screen displayed Youth Innovation Program, Special Presentation, Amara Johnson. Amara set her silver case on the table, opened it, and carefully assembled her prototype. She explained how it worked, from the nanofiltration membrane to the UV sterilization process. She spoke with confidence, answering questions about material sourcing, energy efficiency, and field applications. At one point, an older engineer leaned forward. "This is impressive work, young lady. We've tested similar systems, but none as portable or energy efficient as yours. How did you think of this design?" Amara smiled. "I read about water shortages in disaster zones and refugee camps. I wanted to make something that could be carried in a backpack and still save lives." There was a moment of silence, the kind filled with respect rather than doubt. Then, applause filled the room. After the presentation, Doctor Benton handed her a sleek black folder with the NASA logo embossed in silver. Inside was a certificate naming her an official junior engineering contributor, along with a signed letter from the program director. But the moment that meant the most came when a tall man in a blue NASA flight jacket approached her. "Amara," he said, "your design will be field tested in a rural community next year. You're not just a part of this program, you're changing lives." On the flight home, Amara gazed out the window at the clouds below. She thought of Ms. Whitmore, the judges, and every doubter at that science fair. She didn't feel anger, only gratitude for the chance to prove herself. Her grandmother's words echoed in her mind. The truth don't need nobody's permission to be true. And now, the truth was clear. She was an engineer, and the world knew it.